Comfort is seductive. It's warm, familiar, and easy to slip into, especially when you're feeling vulnerable. That's why when he reaches out, the first instinct is to answer, to reconnect, to seek the comfort of what once was, even if it wasn't good for you, even if it ended in heartbreak, disappointment, or betrayal. Because here's the truth. Your brain craves familiarity. It's wired for it. It doesn't care whether something is good or bad for you. It only cares if it's known, if it's predictable, if it feels like home. That's why so many people fall back into the same relationships, the same toxic cycles, the same patterns that hurt them over and over again. It's not because they don't know better. It's because the brain confuses familiarity with safety. So when his name pops up on your phone, when you hear that voice again, when you read those words that once made your heart race, your body reacts before your mind can catch up. A flood of memories rushes in. The late night talks, the inside jokes, the way he used to look at you. The good times, the moments that made you feel alive, the dreams you built in your mind about what could have been. But what you don't realize in that moment is that comfort is the biggest liar you'll ever meet. Comfort tells you to go back because it's easier than moving forward. It tells you that even though it wasn't perfect, it was at least something. It tells you that being alone is scarier than being with someone who never fully showed up for you. But if you always choose comfort, you will never grow. Think about it. Every breakthrough in your life, every time you leveled up, every time you became stronger, wiser, more powerful, it happened because you stepped outside of comfort. It happened because you chose growth over what was easy. Growth isn't found in familiar places. Growth is found in the moments where you feel uncertain, where you have to stand in your power even when it feels uncomfortable. Growth happens when you do the opposite of what your fear is telling you to do. And fear will tell you a lot of things when he contacts you. Fear will tell you to answer immediately because what if he moves on? Fear will tell you to give him another chance because what if he's changed? Fear will tell you to believe his words because what if this time he means them? But what has history shown you? Because history is the greatest predictor of the future. People don't change because they say they will. They change because they take consistent, deliberate action over time. And if he's reaching out now, when it's convenient for him, when he's lonely, when he's lost something better, ask yourself, is that real change or is that just a temporary need? This is the mistake most people make. They assume contact means effort. They assume a message means regret. They assume an apology means transformation. But none of that means anything without proof. And proof isn't found in a late night text. Proof isn't found in a "hey, I miss you." Proof isn't found in a few days of good behavior. Proof is found in consistency, in accountability, in actions that require sacrifice, discipline, and genuine effort. So before you respond, before you slip back into the comfort of what's familiar, ask yourself, has he shown up for you in a way that proves he has changed? Has he done the work on himself that goes beyond just words? Has he become the man you needed him to be back when he had the chance? Or is he simply seeking the comfort of you because you were his safety net? Because that's the other side of comfort no one talks about. Just like you might crave the familiarity of him, he might be craving the familiarity of you. Not because he loves you, not because he's changed, not because he's ready to be what you deserve, but because he knows you're the one who will always answer, the one who will always forgive, the one who makes him feel better about himself. And that's where you have a choice. You can choose to fall back into comfort. You can choose to relive the same story, hoping the ending will somehow change. You can choose to believe the words you've heard 100 times before. Or you can choose something different. because comfort will keep you trapped in the past. But growth, the kind of growth that leads to self-respect, real love, and the future you deserve, only happens when you step into the unknown. Respect is not something you demand from others. It is something you cultivate within yourself. It is a standard you set, a foundation you build, and a boundary you refuse to let anyone cross. And the moment you start compromising your self-respect for the sake of someone else's approval, you lose control. When he contacts you, there's going to be a moment, a split second, where your emotions try to override your logic. A moment where your heart races, your mind spins, and every insecurity you've ever buried starts whispering in your ear. What you do in that moment determines everything. Because that is the moment where you decide, am I acting from a place of self-worth, or am I acting from a place of fear? Fear makes you chase validation. It makes you respond even when you know you shouldn't. It makes you lower your standards just to keep someone's attention. Fear convinces you that answering means power, when in reality it's the exact opposite. But real self-respect requires discipline. It requires you to pause, to breathe, to remind yourself of everything you have learned. It requires you to stop looking at him as the source of your worth and start seeing yourself as the prize. It requires you to ask yourself, does this serve me? Does this align with the future I am building? Does this feel like self-love, or does this feel like self-betrayal? Because every time you let someone back into your life without making them earn that privilege, you teach them that access to you is easy. You teach them that they can hurt you, walk away, and still find an open door whenever they feel like it. You teach them that your standards are flexible, that your boundaries are negotiable, and that your heart is available for their convenience. That is not respect. Respect is knowing that your time, your energy, and your heart are valuable. It is understanding that just because someone reaches out doesn't mean they deserve a response. It is recognizing that not everyone who wants access to you should have it. Now here's the hard truth. People treat you the way you allow them to treat you. If you keep letting him in without requiring change, you are teaching him that he doesn't need to change. If you keep making excuses for his behavior, you are teaching him that accountability doesn't matter. If you keep responding to his breadcrumbs, you are teaching him that the bare minimum is enough for you. You cannot control how he acts. You cannot control why he reached out, what his motives are, or whether he's truly changed. But you can control what you allow, and that is where self-respect is tested, not in what you say you want, but in what you tolerate. Think back to the moments where you compromised your standards for him, the moments where you ignored the red flags, justified the inconsistency, forgave without real change. How did those choices make you feel? Did they make you feel powerful? Did they make you feel valued? Did they make you feel like you were honoring yourself? Or did they leave you feeling small, weak, unimportant? Because every time you put someone else's needs above your own self-worth, you reinforce a damaging belief that your value is tied to their attention, that their validation is more important than your own, that being chosen by them is worth more than choosing yourself. But here's what you have to understand. Respecting yourself is not about him. It's about you. It's about proving to yourself that you mean what you say. It's about refusing to settle for words when actions are what matter. It's about knowing that you deserve more. Not because someone else tells you so, but because you decide it for yourself. And respect isn't something you turn on and off depending on who is reaching out to you. It is a way of living. It is the standard that governs your decisions, your relationships, and the way you allow people to treat you. So when he contacts you, don't make the mistake of forgetting everything you've learned, Don't make the mistake of responding out of loneliness instead of strength. Don't make the mistake of thinking that his attention is proof of his transformation. Respect yourself enough to pause, to think, to ask yourself, is this what I truly deserve? Silence is not weakness. Silence is not avoidance. Silence is one of the most powerful tools you have, and yet so many people underestimate it. When he contacts you, the first thing you will feel is the urge to respond. It might be excitement, it might be anger, it might be relief, but whatever it is, it will push you toward action, toward saying something, toward giving him a reaction. That is the mistake most people make. Because the truth is, your words are not your power, your silence is. Think about the last time he walked away, the last time he ignored your needs, the last time he treated you like an afterthought. You probably wanted answers. You probably wanted an explanation, some kind of closure, something to make sense of what happened. And what did he do? He stayed silent. Because silence forces people to sit with their choices. It forces them to feel the weight of their actions without an immediate way to relieve that discomfort. It makes them wonder, question, doubt. And now here he is, reaching out, looking for a response, waiting for confirmation that he still has access to you. This is where you take back control. Most people believe that not responding means they are weak, that they look like they care too much, that ignoring someone makes them seem petty or immature. But silence isn't about pettiness. It isn't about proving a point. It's about power. It's about showing without a single word that you are no longer someone who can be pulled back into the same cycle. That you don't owe him your energy, your time, or your emotional labor just because he decided to reappear. That you are no longer available for his convenience. Because when you respond, you give him relief, you give him confirmation that he still holds space in your mind, in your heart, in your life. And whether your response is kind or cold, whether it's a long message or a short one, the moment you engage, you hand over your power. But when you stay silent, that's when the shift happens. Silence creates uncertainty. It forces him to wonder why you haven't answered, to question whether he still has the same effect on you, to sit in the discomfort of realizing that maybe, just maybe, you've moved on. And that is far more powerful than any message you could send. Because silence does what words never can. It shows that you are in control. It removes the need for explanations. It eliminates the possibility of being manipulated by charm, excuses, or empty promises. It keeps you from being dragged back into a situation that once caused you pain. It is the ultimate test of self-discipline. Because make no mistake, choosing silence is hard. It requires you to override your emotions, to sit with the discomfort of not getting the last word, to resist the temptation to defend yourself, to seek closure, to demand answers. It requires you to trust that the real closure doesn't come from what he says, it comes from what you decide. And right now you get to decide whether or not you let him disrupt your peace. Most people will break their silence because they think it will give them control over the situation. They think that if they just say the right thing, if they craft the perfect response, if they show him that they're over it, they'll win. But that's an illusion. Because the second you engage, you are no longer in control. Your emotions are on the table, your energy is invested, and even if you think you're in control, he knows one thing. You answered. And if you answered once, you might answer again. But when you stay silent, there is no opening, no opportunity for manipulation, no reassurance for him, just the weight of his own actions. And that weight is what will make him reflect more than any message ever could. This is the power of silence. It is not passive. It is not weak. It is the strongest move you can make when someone who once disregarded you suddenly decides they want your attention again. Because in that silence, you communicate everything that needs to be said. That you are no longer waiting, that you no longer need closure, that you are no longer someone who will settle for words without action. And the most powerful thing about silence, it leaves him wondering. When he contacts you, your first instinct will be to look backward. Your mind will immediately take you on a journey through the past, through the good moments, the laughs, the times you felt loved, the way things used to be when it all felt right. That's human nature. We remember the highlights, the moments that made us feel safe, the hope we once had. But here's the truth. The past is not a place you live. It's a place you learn from. And right now, you are standing at a crossroads. You can make a decision that moves you forward, or you can make one that keeps you stuck in the same cycle. The mistake most people make is allowing their emotions to dictate their choices instead of their vision. They let nostalgia pull them back instead of letting wisdom push them forward. But if you want to break free from patterns that no longer serve you, if you want to create a future that aligns with the person you are becoming, then you have to stop making decisions based on who you were. Because the version of you that wanted him, that waited for him, that settled for less than what you deserved, that version of you no longer exists. You have grown, you have learned, you have felt the pain of betrayal, the weight of disappointment, the exhaustion of trying to hold on to something that wasn't meant for you. You have spent sleepless nights questioning your worth, wondering if you did enough, blaming yourself for things that were never yours to carry. And now, after everything, you are here, in this moment, holding the power to choose differently. So the question is, are you going to make a decision for the person you are now, or are you going to make one for the person you used to be? Because when you respond to him from a place of familiarity, from comfort, from the past, you are reactivating an old version of yourself. The version that tolerated mixed signals, that ignored red flags, that waited for love instead of demanding it. The version that put someone else's needs above their own self-respect. But when you respond from a place of growth, everything shifts. Growth means choosing what aligns with your future, even when it's hard. Growth means understanding that the right person won't need to come back, they will have never left. Growth means recognizing that love is not something you chase, it's something that meets you where you are fully. This is where most people struggle. They feel an emotional pull toward the past, but they don't realize that growth requires discipline. It requires you to make decisions based on logic, not longing. It requires you to see the situation for what it is, not for what you hope it could be. Because here's the truth, if he truly changed, if he truly became the man you once needed him to be, he wouldn't just be reaching out, he would be showing up. Not with words, not with apologies, but with consistent, undeniable action. But you have to ask yourself, does his message reflect real growth, or is it just a moment of convenience? Because history repeats itself when lessons aren't learned. And if you've already been through the cycle of leaving, returning, breaking, and rebuilding, then what makes this time any different? What has changed? Not in him, but in you. Because you are the one who holds the power now. You are the one who gets to decide if you continue the same cycle or if you break free from it once and for all. This isn't about him, it never was. It's about what you are willing to accept in your life. And if your future self could speak to you right now, what would she say? Would she beg you to go back, to take another chance on someone who already showed you who they are? Or would she remind you of how far you've come? Of the promises you made to yourself on the nights when you swore you'd never allow yourself to be hurt in the same way again. Because that version of you, the future you, the one who is healed, whole, and no longer waiting, is watching the choice you make right now. And the decision you make today will determine who you become tomorrow.